Hey folks, how's it going? A little while ago I made a video, I think I titled it How to Wild Camp, and in that video I covered kind of what is wild camping, where can you wild camp, and things like personal safety and leave no trace. This is a sort of a continuation. It's been months, but I thought I'd carry it on, partly because I had a couple of comments recently from subscribers asking about packing and that, you know, my backpack seems to fit everything in no problem and all that sort of stuff. So I thought I'd share my packing process. There's a lot of sort of generic stuff in terms of, you know, you can switch these things out for different things. I'm not endorsing products. I just want to kind of talk through my thought process of how I pack and cover the basics of what you need to go wild camping. The way I kind of set it out in my head, and when you pack for a trip, it is very trip dependent. I mean, I'm fortunate. I've got a fair amount of gear these days. I've got different types of shelters. I've got different sleep systems, different food options depending on what the trip involves. This particular trip, it's January, so it's winter. I'm going on a hilltop. I want it to be reasonably lightweight. So those are my criteria. But my thought process doesn't change if I go different places. I still pack the same way every time. And I'll just talk you through that, and then we'll have a look at what I've actually chosen for this trip, and it covers all the basics of what you need. So I've got it all laid out on the table, and this is how I pack every trip. I'll get stuff out, lay it on the table, but I lay it in a certain order so that in my head it makes sense that I've not forgotten anything. So let's have a look at the table. So starting from the right, this is the way I think about it. I go bedroom, and then bed, and then I go warmth, and then kind of waterproofing, and then food and drink. And there's a few other bits and pieces here as well: first aid, electronics, and toilet kit. So that is how I always set it out, and that's what I always think in my head. I'll get it all out on the table, and then I just run through, right, bedroom, bed, yeah, got to keep warm, yeah, I need to eat and drink, what if it rains, what if I hurt myself, electrical stuff, and inevitably I'll need to go to the toilet. So let's have a look at exactly what I've got here and fit it in a backpack. So backpack of choice, I think, and again, this changes on every trip. This is an Osprey Rook, I think it's 65 litre backpack. This is my usual kind of walking trip backpack. I've got up there a Snugpak Rocket Pack, which is about 100 litres, and that's usually my kind of in the woodland backpack where I'm not walking as far, but it's not the most comfortable, but you can jam loads of gear in it. And then I've also got up here an ultralight pack, which I generally reserve for the summer because you can't quite get as much in that. But this is my favourite backpack, the Osprey one, because it's got this suspension thing on it. It's comfortable for walking and all that sort of thing. So that's my pack. And as I say, bedroom. I thought long and hard about this for this particular trip, because where I'm going is a hilltop. It's only 200-300 meters high, but it's winter. It's going to be windy. It's going to be cold, and it might rain. Don't quite know yet. The weather's changeable. So I've gone with a tent. I've gone with a tent that can handle a bit of wind, and I've gone with a tent that enables me to sort of sit up and be comfortable. And that today is the Naturehike Cloud Up 2, which is probably my favourite tent that I own. So that's that. So that's bedroom, and then bed. Now bear in mind it's winter, it's cold, and I'm probably going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours from my car. So a foil mat in my mind is essential, because, you know, yes, I'll bring an inflatable mat, but if the inflatable mat goes down in the night, at least I'm not going to freeze to death, because I'll land on this, which is under the inflatable mat. So cheap foil mat, it's like £4. It's not expensive. And yes, it's winter, so I've got two mats that can deal with winter. I've gone with the Exped Down Mat 9. This is my warmest mat, and I haven't been camping for a while, so I just want to be comfortable. This is quite big. This is probably my luxury item of this trip. My other winter mat is half this size, but it's not quite as comfortable. So I've gone with the Exped if I can fit it in. If it turns out I can't, then I'll change mats. And then a sleeping bag. This is a winter sleeping bag. This is a down bag, rated, you know, to be comfortable in very cold conditions. Happy with this. And then I got a pillow. It's not essential, this, but it makes for a comfortable night because you don't get the neck ache. So that is bedroom and bed. I say it's winter, top of a hill, cold. So you've got to keep that in mind. So my next thought process turns to being warm. Now this dry bag, I should mention, a lot of this stuff, you know, this is a, what is this? Sea to Summit waterproof compression sack. The sleeping bag's not Sea to Summit, there's a Rab bag in here, but this compression sack is waterproof, which is why I use it. This dry bag is waterproof. You know, it's winter time, stuff can get wet, so protecting everything within your backpack is essential, because the last thing you want to do is get to where you're going and find all your stuff soaking wet. So with that in mind, you know, I've got various, you know, dry bags that everything's in. If you don't have dry bags, you know, carrier bags are fine. Stuff everything in a carrier bag. This one I take on every trip, even in the summer I take this one, and it's got a warm hat to sleep in. It's got a down jacket. It's got a buff, which comes in handy for all sorts of things. It's got a merino wool base layer top, because it's all about keeping your core warm. And it's got a pair of down boots, because, you know, keeping your feet warm is also important. So that is all that's in that bag. And I say, I'll take this even in the summer, because you do get summer nights where it's a bit chilly. And it's nice to be able to stick a coat on, stick a hat on, put something on your feet to keep them warm. You know, camping, to me, you've got to be comfortable, because I've been cold before in the night, once, and I promised myself it would never happen again, because it was not a pleasant night. So that bag comes with me every trip. This is an extra because it's winter. In the summertime I tend to leave this one out. This one has down trousers, a pair of gloves, like what do you call them, Thinsulate gloves. It's got a pair of long johns, which I'll generally sleep in, and then it's got a fleecy, you know, just a lightweight fleece top, like what I'm wearing now, and that I'll generally sleep in that as well. And for some reason there's a knee support in there because I've got ropey knees, so you know. So that's my second bag. So that's really, in terms of warmth, that's all the clothing I got, which to some it may seem enough, but to others it might not. Like I say, I don't like being cold, so when I'm set off on the trip I will be wearing kind of a wicking top, and then maybe a lightweight fleece, and perhaps a hoodie of some sort. But then when I get to where I'm going, I can strip that off, put the merino wool layer on, put the hoodie back on, and put the down jacket on, and if I need to I can put my rain jacket over that as well, and that will keep me warm. And the down trousers and boots and stuff, that all really helps. Still on clothing, you know, English summertime, English wintertime, you can never be too careful. The weather's always inclement, it's always changeable. These are old ex-army Gore-Tex trousers, and this is a Gore-Tex jacket. And this doubles as a windproof jacket as well, and these are windproof trousers because Gore-Tex is very good at blocking the wind. You know, Gore-Tex jacket is expensive, but the army surplus stuff is cheap as chips. As long as you don't mind having the, you know, dodgy camo pattern, then you know, you're going to be protected. So you're good quality gear for not a lot of money. Right, so then we're on to essentials. For me, not everyone, but for me, a poo kit is essential. Again, plastic bag within a dry bag, because the last thing I want is for this to get wet. That is toilet paper, a little foldy shovel, some sanitizer. In there is large wipes, like oversized wipes, and they've dried now, but if I want to have a wash in the morning, I just splash a tiny bit of water in the bag, smooch it about, and then bits and bits can get washed. There's also a glove for just in case, and a lighter, which, you know, can be helpful if you need to burn said toilet paper. So that is my poo kit, and that comes on every trip. Sometimes I swap out the shovel. If I'm going in the woods, I might take a metal shovel if I need to dig fire pits and such. But the basic kit is the same. I generally always carry a sit pad because kneeling, doing tent stuff, sitting in the doorway of the tent, that sort of thing, it's just nice to keep your knees dry or your bum off the ground. First aid kit, always carry a first aid kit. Now, this particular trip, one beer, because I'm going to have a pint at the pub before I start walking. This is a, what is it, Platypus 2 litre water container and a 1 litre Nalgene. Now 3 litres for an overnight trip is probably overkill, but to me, better to have too much than not enough. And a lot of this stuff is about redundancy. I may not wear all them clothes, but at least I've got places to go. If I get cold, if I get wet, I can change into some of them. And the same with water. This packs down to nothing when it's empty. So on the way back, that's just an empty screwed up plastic thing. This always stays the same size and it's quite heavy. But in combination, this is, you know, guaranteed not to leak. So I'm definitely going to have a litre of water that I can drink at any point. This is a plastic thing. I could catch it on a bramble because it goes in the side pocket of my bag. It could pop. If I just took this, then all my eggs are in that basket. But because I'm carrying both, you don't necessarily have to fill this all the way up, but I do, because 3 litres is a nice round amount. And then, stove-wise. Now, if I'm going camping with another person, I generally communicate with that person and we decide together what we're cooking on in terms of it'll be a fire or liquid fuel or gas or whatever. So I've made a phone call this afternoon. I'm going with someone else on this trip. We've both agreed to use gas. This is again redundancies. We're both going to have a similar sized pot, and I've got a little gas stove inside the pot and my gas bowl and a windshield. So if my stove breaks, then I can plug my gas into the other guy's stove. If my gas runs out, they might have a bit of gas they can lend me. So redundancies are a good idea. So that's the stove. And then food and drink. I generally carry this. It's not super waterproof, but there's nothing in here that can get ruined. This has got my cup. It's got a little folding knife. It's got some coffee bags. It's got my toothbrush. It's got some milk powder and sugar. It's got a little bit of rum. It's got my spork. So that's everything I need food-wise in terms of utensils. Because I've opted for food out of a bag, so that's my supper, pork and dumplings with cabbage, and that's my breakfast, all-day breakfast. I don't need a plate, I don't need a bowl, because I can boil the meal in this one pot, eat it out the bag, job done. So that is food and drink. I've got this down pouch. Again, it's winter, so these food bags fit in the down pouch. So once you get them hot, you slide them in there and they stay hot for quite a while, which warms this pouch up. Which, if we move on to electricals, all my electricals are in this, which includes batteries, power banks and stuff. That also fits in the down pouch, which means this is a multi-use thing that weighs not a lot. That is a, what is it, Sussex Outdoors pouch. Get them on Outdoor Gear Essentials. In my electricals pouch, now I'm filming, so probably I maybe carry a little bit more than people who aren't filming, but the basics are the same. You know, I have a set of headphones. This is a weird headband headphones. A little spare camera phone holder thingy. A pump, which is also a light, so that can pump up my airbed and hang in my tent to provide light, multi-use item. A couple of GoPro batteries. There's a power bank in there. There's a charger for the GoPro. There's a spare torch, a little dinky, whatever that is, batten something or other from Olight. That's a spare torch. I probably won't use it because I've got my head torch. But if my head torch fails, I've got a redundancy. And then in this bag is the relevant charging cables. There's a couple of USB-Cs and a USB, what's the other one? B, I think. Again, in a waterproof bag because bad weather. Batteries are in a waterproof bag because of, you know, they might get ruined. I keep a spare SD card, just a little one, in a bag so that it doesn't get ruined. That zips up like that. And there's a little tripod and a head torch. The head torch, if I was on a bigger trip, would be in with the electricals, but the trip I'm going on, we're doing a night hike, so I'm going to need this, so I'll stick it in the hip pocket of my bag so I can get it as soon as I need it. So that's out separate. Everything is charged and ready to go. And that's it. That is all I got. But that covers bedroom, bed, being warm, being dry, eating, drinking, cooking, and electricals. And that is how I think of it every single time. If I was going in a woodland doing a tarp camp, for example, I would think bedroom, well, that's a tarp and paracord and a knife to cut said paracord. Bed, I would need some sort of ground sheet perhaps, mat, sleeping bag, pillow if I felt the need. Cooking, maybe I'll cook on a fire. Well, cooking, then I need a saw, I need an axe, I need a ferro rod. But they're all in compartments in my head, which are, you know, bedroom, bed, cooking, warmth, all that sort of thing. So that is how my brain works when I'm packing. Let's get all this in the bag and make sure it all fits, because if it's not going to fit, then you've got to rejig, you've got to think again. Maybe I'll sacrifice the mat for a smaller one. But I'm reasonably confident it'll all go in no problem. How you pack is also quite important, because yes, you could stuff your tent down the bottom, that's great, it fits in and everything's fine, but when you arrive, the first thing you want is your tent. You know, when you arrive, the first thing you want is maybe a jacket. How you put things in the bag can also make life easier. So sleeping bag always, to me, goes in this bottom section of the backpack. If it was a backpack that was kind of an all-in-one, just a big sack, the sleeping bag would go at the bottom. Now this used to make me quite uncomfortable when I was first camping, because I'd always think, if I put this down on the wet ground, is my sleeping bag going to get wet? Which is why a dry bag or even a bin liner to put it in is quite an important thing, because keeping your sleeping bag dry is essential, I would say. Sit pad can go in the bottom there as well, because it just fits underneath, and again provide, you know, a little layer for keeping my sleeping bag off the actual ground. And then for good measure, I can usually squeeze in my pillow in that section as well, and my first aid kit, because then I always know where my first aid kit is. I know it's at the bottom of the bag, but the zip is right here. You know, if something should happen, that's all I've got to do is get my first aid kit out. So keeping that handy is good practice. So that is the very bottom of my bag. Right, so now these are my warm clothes for later on. So that can go at the bottom where it's protected in the middle of the bag. Same with my poo kit. Keep it safe. Keep it down the bottom, because I hopefully won't need that till the morning. Then my camping mat can go in there. Tea, coffee and all that sort of thing. Stuff that in there so I can see it. Electrical stuff can go in there, standing up on its end. Pot can go in there. The stove is in there too. Gas bottle in the middle, so hopefully it doesn't get damaged. Windshield. Put the food in front so you can see it, you can grab it. But also, again, it's another little layer of waterproofing to keep that away from any moisture. Shove my down jobby in there. Alright, so then my dry bag, and that is about it for there. that part of my backpack. We'll come back to it, it's not done yet. But I'll just close it up for a second. Okay, so then we've got this top pocket up here. And that needs to hold, in my head, waterproof clothing so that it's very easy to get to should the need arise. That's full wet gear in the top. Right, what have we got left? Foil mat and tent, which are the things I want first, and then liquids, head torch, walking poles, camera tripod. So head torch can go in there. That one's empty. I'm not going to fill this up now because I'll fill it up. I'm not going for a couple of days, so. But this, you get the idea, it's going to fit in that side pocket full, obviously. And then the other side pocket will hold this full and my can of beer. And then lastly, open this back up. I'm going to put foil mat there. Tent up on top. That's me packed. Now, it doesn't take very long to pack, but I do tend to, when I lay it all out, sometimes it'll be laid out for a couple of days while I fettle with bits and pieces. You know, I might swap a couple of things out there. I probably won't. I think I'm reasonably happy with that. I might add a little bit more food. I might take something sweet to eat after dinner. I've got those two side pockets of my backpack. Probably car keys will go in one, and maybe my phone will go in the other one. You know, if I was going on a longer trip, maybe I've got to squeeze in an extra beer, maybe I'll squeeze in an extra pair of socks, that sort of thing. But nothing too drastic. And like I say, I can always lose that big comfy air mat and put in my sort of smaller sized one. And that would then buy me the space to add a few extra bits and pieces. But yeah, so that's my... I can hear a cat meowing. That's my trip coming up. What I've packed, how I've packed, and my thought process for said trip. Like I say, this is a walking trip, but all my trips are the same thought process. I just might swap out different bits of gear, maybe a different tent, or even a different shelter altogether, a tarp or a bivvy or something. But the process in my head is the same. I used to write lists, but the trouble I find writing lists is you keep adding bits to it, you keep adding. Whereas with this sort of method of doing it, yeah, maybe you're prone to forget something now and again, but also just laying it out and seeing it is better than a list, because you can physically touch all the things you're going to need. You can go through your evening, yeah, that. So, yeah, that is how I pack for an overnight wild camp on a hill, for example. But it's how I pack all the time. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you do things similar, if you do things differently, how you avoid forgetting things, you know, how one might do things differently. Because everyone is different, but this is just how I do it. Yeah, works for me. This trip video will probably be the next thing on my channel, so look out for that. I shan't tell you where it is because it's a wild camp and, you know, don't want anyone shooing us away. Yeah, it'll be somewhere nice. See you later.